We have a react from Board. We got a react from Board Gamer, and I'm sorry, I have to watch this. I don't know how I can't watch this, because this is the title. Star Citizen 1.0 full release might be sooner than you think. How many years, and I'm using plural on purpose, how many years do you think it is away, chat? Because for me, I'm going minimum 2, maximum 4. Right? Minimum 2. So I'm really curious where Board's thought process is here. So let's see where we're going with this one.
Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. I want to talk about what my vision of a Star Citizen 1.0 full release looks like, because...
All right. Interesting start, because for him, a 1.0 release might look like much simpler than what my 1.0 would look like. And I am simplifying, personally, I am very much simplifying what my expectation would be for a 1.0 release of what it really should be, I should say. So, yeah, I think the ability to get the 323 features in that were worked on for possibly years, polished, all this stuff, and seeing the state of everything now in the actual live release, I do not know how we can possibly think that this is less than 2 years away. But let's see.
Quite genuinely, it might not be too far away. So I'm talking about a minimum viable product here for Star Citizen's persistent universe. Because Star Citizen aims to be an FPS MMO with loads of spaceships, star systems and gameplay area, a dynamic economy, industrial jobs, fun combat, and yeah, tons of missions and content to keep players playing. Now, bit of a disclaimer, this is not an exhaustive list, and there are dozens of mini systems and features that I'll sort of be glossing over or bundling into other features, and this is just what I reckon they're aiming for a 1.0 commercial release for the game. And it is based on a reasonable amount of logic and sort of experience knowing what CIG want to put into the game.
If we're saying less than 2 years, I don't think we're using a reasonable amount of logic, but okay.
We aren't too far away from the reality of it being a game either, and a 1.0 release. So we've got Squadron 42's core features being brought into the game this year.
We are not too away from it being a game. We're not too far away from it being a game. I would say that's the part I struggle with. It is, for me, I can't even see the vision of the game yet. So this is always going to come down to everybody's personal opinion here. And they are doing a lot of this about the game, the game stuff, right? There's a lot of this, but there has not been that much action yet. Now, I do look at 323 as a setup patch. You know, there's a lot of setup going on there for them to actually put things in motion towards the game stuff. I think the biggest thing towards that is probably the reputation, if it works, if it's doing what it needs to do, so on and so forth. So we'll have to see on that front. I'm not 100% sure, but there's a lot of, like, CitizenCon just talking. Every single panel mentioned reputation and progression, and a lot of them mentioned like rewards for the things that you do, making it valuable to actually, you know, take part in certain tasks in the game. So I loved what they were saying. None of that is really happening at this moment, right? But we are also seeing a lot of stuff like the FPS stuff getting a lot of polish, looking more like what a 1.0 release would look like for FPS stuff. We're seeing master modes. You know, they're kind of, this is the last hurrah for flight changes in a lot of ways, right? Like, it'll be tuned for a while, but this is it. So there's a lot of good and 1.0 like things, but no economy, no progression, no org systems. Where's base building? Where's the purpose in the game? Sandboxes are still sandboxes with like good sandbox games allow you to kind of choose what you do to dynamically change the worlds that you're playing in and very much be a part of it while simultaneously giving you options to do, right? And reasons to do them. And we don't have any of that.
Got Alpha 3.23, which is the next major patch, which has
I'm going to turn the volume up a little bit. It's a little low for me.
It's going to be later in the year.
How's that, guys?
Going to have server meshing, a new star system, and a load of other of the core features from Squadron 42 in as well. And
Better?
yeah,
Sorry
Squadron 42's release is that short-term focus along with those other things, 3.23, 4.0, all that sort of jazz. But then it's the road to 1.0's release. Yes, there are going to be other patches before 1.0, but this could genuinely have a 1.0 full release by the end of 2025 or by sort of mid-2026.
We're on the same page then.
A lot of, I reckon.
Okay, what by the end of 2025 is a year. No, nope. That's insane.
But genuinely, it's very possible. CIG have recently been talking.
So let's use a little bit of logic here, right? Let's use reasonable logic here. You will see everything and more from Star Citizen, from CitizenCon in Star Citizen in the next year or so. How many months has it been since October, guys? It's been about 6. It's been about 6 months. And look at what we have. How can you think that there would be a minimum viable product 1.0 release in 18 months?
About building an internal roadmap to 1.0, and what I'm expecting in that 1.0 initial release is what I want to talk about today. Although there's a lot of overlap, I'm going to be roughly talking about 2 major groups of things: features and gameplay loops. Now, there are a ton of features and gameplay that's going to be getting refined. We've got a load of stuff in-game already, but that needs to evolve, that needs to expand, and it's going to. Feature-wise, a handful of star systems. Obviously, we're hoping to have 100 at some point, but I think for an initial release,
no shot will ever get 100, I don't think. Also, I think what we're going to see at CitizenCon is multiple star systems other than Pyro. But using reasonable logic, we have seen Pyro for 4 or 5 years now. And it was fake or like barely complete, just enough to be able to showcase it. Again, using reasonable logic, we saw a lot of kind of how things work. Things were presentable at CitizenCon, but they were not shippable at CitizenCon. Things were presentable. So I think what we will see at CitizenCon is presentable star systems, but not shippable ones. But we'll see. You can cross your fingers there.
They could get away with as few as 5 and maybe a dozen. So between 5 and a dozen star systems. Everything from that engine demo
6.
they showed at CitizenCon. So
my guess.
That's all of the pretty stuff from cool water to the Maelstrom destruction system of ships and buildings, various additional creatures, sort of expanding what they have with the Morak and the Copians to actually have the Mukchak Yeti and Star Whales and Space Cows and all that sort of jazz as well. Server meshing. So getting that with 4.0, but with a 1.0 release, I would hope that they'd have dynamic server meshing and a refined network code ready. Although they might be able to get away with.
I think that is a very reasonable thought. I don't think you can have 1.0 without some form of dynamic server meshing. Like, I feel like that's a thing that they kind of have to prove that they can do. It depends on how solid static is, but at the same time, I think you get a bit of, I'm sure you guys are aware servers are very expensive. If you ever look at CIG's like expenditures, server costs are up there. But let me try and, how do I say this? I think the initial static server meshing will save them a bit of money on that. But the real money saver on on server costs will be dynamic, right? Because they'll spin up when they need them, they spin down when they don't, right? So it all it will work perfectly with the amount of players as they're playing, so they say. So if that's actually how it works, it's hard for me to not expect a dynamic, like, unless it goes completely wrong, dynamic server meshing with the 1.0 release. Because how do you go to 1.0 without, first off, your final framework of how your server architecture is, and you know, we all know that the missions have to work with those and things like that. So yeah, I think that's just what has to happen, is from a just spending standpoint, you have to have dynamic server meshing, right?
Static server meshing and just a much better netcode. But yeah, I'm expecting dynamic server meshing. Organization systems, so orgs, clans, whatever in game, they need better ways to coordinate. You want to be able to see players in orgs at a glance. You want to be able to have org wars. You want to be able to
what is this hope bait video? Jesus Christ, the only thing that's hope bait is the title. And guys, you like, non-YouTubers are so funny. YouTube forces you to make a title like this, right? Like, should I just like meme and like make a face in in like the thumbnail? Like, come on. It's just one of the things you do. It literally forces you to do that because you need to have a good click-through rate. You want to have a clicky title that makes people click, like all those things. So these are the things that you have to think about. You can't just post a good video anymore. You have to post a good video and farm engagement if you want to, you know, do good on YouTube. It is super annoying, and it's, you know, like, what do you want the guy to be, a bad YouTuber? Like, you're literally forced to do this. So I don't click those titles, though. That's fine, right? But you're in the minority. A lot of people click those titles, and it's just YouTube teaches you to do this, essentially.
Pilot capital.
And then you guys get mad. Yeah, I get it, but at the same time, it's like, just recognize that it's something that, yeah, you have to appease to the internet brain rot, as Shush Daddy
ships and everything with them. They need better systems for ship and bed logging. All that sort of stuff needs to be solved. How can I go around with my org, with a group of friends, and play Star Citizen? Some of us log off, some of us log back in, all that sort of jazz. That all needs to work properly, and ships need to they need to work out how they're going to have ships sort of be persistent in game, or are they going to sort of spawn out, whatever. All that sort of stuff needs to be solved. And then
that's actually a very good point too, Ajed, is like a title like this, especially around, like, you know, Asmongold has a very strong like audience on YouTube, right? So he posts a React video, like on a Space Tomato video recently, right? So now maybe his audience is a little bit interested in Star Citizen. Star Citizen's 1.0 full release might be sooner than you think. Bang. All those people that are like all of a sudden paying attention to Star Citizen are maybe clicking on this video. So it's like, it's all these like meta gaming that you have to do. It's so annoying and it's so brutal, and none of us like to do this shit, but you have to.
We need to have a load of system, weapon, customization, modularity. Loads of modules, loads of weapons, mines, things like that as well. The ability to paint your ship in a much better way than we could just drop.
Hold up, man. I just noticed something. Does anybody... I'm gonna... All right, guys. You know the star map, how it's like pretty annoying, and literally every single UI in the game? I want you to look at the bottom right of the screen. How ironic is this?
Modularity. Loads of modules.
Bottom left.
Loads of weapons. Mines. Things like that as well. The ability to paint your ship in a much better way than we...
How ironic is that? The black text on the white
drop
background.
Skins on it now. So all of that sort of customization needs to be in game. We want a huge diversity of weapons and lots and lots of modules to be able to change the roles of ships to some degree. But yeah, that system is vital for me to enjoy Star Citizen because I love customization. Then we've got things like the dynamic persistent economy. We don't want to have any more wipes or resets. 1.0 is released.
No, we do not.
No more wipes. We are totally live. And That does mean that they need to be able to track all these different things, and it's not entirely player-led, the economy. It is player-influenced, but it is very much a sort of, there's 10 NPCs sort of flying around for every one player doing things and affecting the economy. And part of that is that quantum simulation.
No more wipes, copium. You move from no more wipes to rollbacks. Every MMO has had a rollback at some point.
That we've seen
I don't know what's
from
worse.
Zerovic a couple of times. But what's going on in the sort of star system will be affected by player actions, missions generated, and all that sort of jazz, and will feed back into the simulation and go, this is what's happening in these areas. These are the sort of pirates and the encounters that you might get. You doing that mission has affected the price of these goods. All that sort of stuff being generated appropriately for the star system and the area that you are in at the...
Okay, so I largely hope that Board is right here and that we do get some of that stuff. I don't think we need it necessarily for a minimum viable product. I don't know about you guys, but I've been gaming for most of my life, and I never had a dynamic economy in an MMO before like this. You either had player run or you had a little bit more static, and it worked out okay. I think what you need is a little bit more thought just put into it. And I think that's something that we have now, is that they are thinking and they are caring about it, and it needs to make a little bit more sense. But the dynamism of, I do this mission and it affects this and this way, I don't necessarily think we need that. It would be great, but I don't think a 1.0 release hinges on the absolutely pie in the sky Tony Z stuff. I don't necessarily know what it would look like. I'm not, a game designer or anything like that, obviously. I don't know the perfect thing, but do you really think that we need the quantum system or whatever in order to have a fun game? I don't know. But you do, hey, that's fine. But I think it's really important. But the question for me would be, if we don't have it, do they move more towards player run economies? Like, we know this crafting thing is coming in, and if any of you have been following this project for a very, very long time, there was conversations and forum posts about there never being crafting in Star Citizen. It's not that kind of game or whatever, right? They've changed their mind about what Star Citizen will be 100 times. Crafting without more player influence is a weird thing. Can't believe people thought we wouldn't. I have been fighting that fight for so long. I don't know how you have an MMO without crafting. It would be insane. So I just don't know how you then decide to put crafting in and not have that that influence the economy significantly, right? Where the previous thought process with the Tony Z thing is, it always felt like we wouldn't influence things very much. So whatever is happening, I don't think it's what we think it will be or what we were told it will be, which has been a classic Star Citizen trope for a while. And I'm lost as to what this economy will look like. And I'm just hoping it's going to be fun. That's all I have, because I just don't know anymore.
Appropriate time.
I'm just
we
hoping.
Also need significantly better performing AI,
and before he goes into the AI stuff, I'm just hoping it's going to be fun. And I think we all look at the framework of the game, the space, the spaceships, the planets, the way things look, the way they describe things at CitizenCon. I think we all probably still have that hope left in us as far as that goes, of it could be, if they just do it well, they have endless potential to to do this well. It's just, can they? And it's one of those things where, for me personally, they have yet to prove that they can make a really good game. So far, what they've been able to prove is that they can make a storefront that makes you want to buy a spaceship, and they have this really awesome showroom to fly around your spaceship that you bought in, right?
AI using ground vehicles, yeah, because we want to be able to fight a variety of AI in lots of different situations. But we also need NPC crew for our ships and AI blades. So basically,
interesting. I think seeing the dude, we are 5 minutes into an 18-minute video, and I've been going for 20 minutes. I am sorry, but this is everything he says. I have something to say. Do the engineering, experimental mode, and it was like, damn, you are not going to be able to fly these big ships solo if you engage in combat. If you engage in combat, right? If you don't engage in combat, you absolutely will be able to. But the scary thing is, like, what's going to happen with AI crew and things like that. Like, that makes it so you almost have to. And then the only balance there is, like, just the cost of it, and I think it'll be fine. As long as they're very expensive, you'll be all right, right? Because in reality, what will you be doing with your crew of friends? You're probably going to all be splitting the money.
I want to be able to hire a crew for my ship. I want to be able to go and actually...
That's the idea, though. You shouldn't be able to fly a giant ship solo. It's completely illogical. Yeah, I mean, you're flying giant ships in Elite Dangerous. You're flying giant ships in Rebel Galaxy. I don't think it's completely illogical from a video game standpoint at all. Okay? And what is completely illogical is for you to think that the majority of MMO players are not solo players. That's where you're being illogical, right? Star Citizen is not Elite or Rebel Galaxy. Star Citizen isn't. Period. Star Citizen isn't anything. And in order for Star Citizen to be something, it has to be relatable and playable by your average gaming audience. So guess what? Guess what? It has to be enjoyable by solo players. And if you are going to pigeonhole solo players into a single tiny ship experience, when the best part of the experience is playing Star Citizen in a multi-crew ship, and not everybody wants to be a crewmate, right? I personally am totally fine being a crewmate in any aspect other than flying. Okay? That's me. But I can't imagine that I'm in the majority. I can't imagine I'm in the majority, because look at the players. I am in the minority, and so are you probably, right? The majority of people are going to want to play this game solo and are going to want to experience a majority of probably the non-PvP experiences solo. And if they need an AI crew, they need an AI crew. I'm 100% with Board here. If your AI is not solid and able to support you through a PvE experience in Star Citizen, you cannot ship this thing to 1.0, because it will flop. It will flop with 100% certainty, because what is the point of starting with a small ship and building up to a big one? You like coordinating with orgs and coordinating with friends. That's going to be a pain in the ass. I think it'll be a flop. But now let me just briefly speak on the idea of the other way that this game has to be successful is to really want to draw you away from that experience of solo playing in a big ship with AI. Like, what is the game end game going to look like? What is the things that players will reach for? Like, oh, I wish I can do that. Hopefully, very intense PvE content and very intense PvP content. And the only way to experience those is with a big group, min-maxing, maybe min-maxing, working together, good communication in an org, right? Challenging. something challenging. And the only way to overcome that challenge is getting a bunch of people to work together, right? So your average day to day, flying your single-seater ship or your multi-crew ship by yourself, enjoying the game peacefully for the most part, and then having the opportunity for like raids and WoW or grouping up for big in-game events and things like that, and getting those rewards and making that progression together as a group, right? Sharing the drops or whatever kind of, similar experience that would be there. This game will not be successful if it can't provide excellent solo gameplay as well as excellent group gameplay. And you need to draw that solo player to want to experience the group gameplay. Otherwise,
hire a crew. I'm going to have this turret
no shot.
Semi-automated by AI. Plug in an AI blade. AI blades are going to be able to do a lot of other stuff as well, sort of a semi-autonomous control and additional function for your ship at the
most of the content needs to be accessible by solo
cost
players.
of computer slot.
And most can be 51%. Just keep that in mind. I don't mean 99%.
But yeah, that's the sort of expanded features that I'm hoping that Star Citizen moves into. Obviously, the big bugs and lots of the small bugs, gone.
Do you think this game has the potential to make you want to play the game in a group? It already does. It already does. Playing in a group is infinitely more fun to me than not playing in a group.
Lots of that stuff. No terrible bugs. Everything's sort of working. No one standing on chairs. No super jank. Nice refined netcode.
Remove the bugs.
Sustained 30 FPS on the servers. Tick rate on the servers, and
it seems like a pipe dream.
Explode or whatever, they sort of, you don't even notice that their servers crashed because it recovers in an appropriate way, puts you on a new server. Great, awesome, all that sort of jazz. Now we might need things like the ability to move region. We're not sure how big servers are going to be, how big shards are going to be with dynamic server matching.
I hope we have
Those
regional
are things
shards.
that we also need to work out, obviously.
And that's it.
But working that out, that's obviously part of a 1.0 release. Now, talking about gameplay loops and the sort of content that will populate some of those features.
Okay.
So, obviously, mining and refining, expanding those out, that they're super important to the economy, but lots more different types of mineable, and having those minables and refined goods actually affect the prices of things and be able to be built into things. Salvage, repair, and sort of the ability to drag a ship back to tow it to a port and actually fully repair it, that sort of stuff.
Thank you, Devil Gator.
To be part of missions. So,
thank you so much.
Obviously, we have a lot of that already to a degree. Obviously, they need to expand out the repair systems so that you can actually repair ships to a proper extent and repair large ships as well. Medical gameplay. So they need to expand out medical gameplay so it's a bit deeper. But also, death of a spaceman is going to be a thing with no more resets as well. Eventually,
I'm calling it here. I think death of a spaceman dies.
If you keep on dying with your guy and you keep on getting brought back or whatever, the medics will bring you back or bring back one of your clones. But if you keep on dying and you don't sort of like don't have a good enough medical service or whatever, maybe there's ways around it to some degree, you will or have the potential of permanently dying in game.
I just think that idea will be, if your character dies, it will be such a non-issue. Like, you just make your character again and you lose very little rep or whatever. Or it just doesn't seem like it makes sense in the direction of any direction that this game has ever been going in. Right? It's a weird, it was an interesting idea, but it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Oh, well,
I don't know.
Your character needs to have an augment.
Very non-casual. I mean, there's a lot of non-casual things in Star Citizen. It's just it's putting the onus on caring about whether your character dies. I guess what we really need to see is like how important reputation is, what they do with it, how much you'll lose if the character dies, things like that. Right? Where most games, it's like, what items did I lose? You know? So we'll see. I could be completely wrong on that one.
Because they can't use their arm properly or whatever because of trauma with them coming back to the clone, because the process isn't perfect. That's the sort of idea there. But there is a level of permanent death in Star Citizen that they want to have. Your sort of next character you make will get most of the stuff that you had, and there might be some level of death tax. Basically, they want mortality to be a thing. They want that to affect and drive your actions so you don't do silly stuff. They need to have refueling and services sort of.
I mean, but then they also let you buy 35 accounts and, like, you know? Please.
Apps and things like that, because you want to be able to have a load of different apps with your mobile glass and be able to go, bam, I want to actually order this service. I want someone to come and refuel me. There needs to be like a system where you rate people and say, I only want people that have been rated 4 or more stars to come and rescue me or service me.
Bored. Jeez. But the idea of I think what he's saying a lot of is service beacons.
Rearm me, whatever, because you don't want to go, well, 1-star guy is obviously a pirate pretending or whatever.
Better service
you need
beacons.
those sort of abilities to call out for service beacons in a much more refined way. And
he wants to be serviced,
ships,
though.
Rearm, repair, all that sort of jazz. Master modes, something that Clan Imperium talk about a lot, but we want master modes in a good state. We want a good flight system. We want a refined combat system. We want a good level of balance. And obviously things like targeting for subsystems, scanning, expanded scanning, stuff like that.
We already have that stuff.
So
Well,
this is
targeting
sort of
at
part
least.
of the multi-crew experience. You want physicalized components for all the ships. You want the ability to repair those components, change sub-components in them, move those components around, and you moving those components, unplugging them getting damaged will affect.
Do you know what the most important thing to me, though, is meaningful components. Progression, man. Progression. Every day I log in and I feel like I'm getting a little bit better. You know, and sometimes I take a step back.
The ship that they're on. You also want the circuitry of the ship. You want to be able to open doors remotely. You want to be able to vent stuff remotely.
You want to be able to
but
we're only halfway through the video.
Remotely, and you want lots for players to do on ships. So not just engineering and sort of pilot and turret gunners, but a variety of other ship systems that could potentially be used, from scanning to comms to bespoke systems on a ship, from mining to salvage or whatever. An expanded level of bounty hunting as well. So obviously bounty hunting in the game at the moment is pretty basic, but you want to be able to capture and track NPCs and players to a much greater degree. Data as cargo as well. You want to be able to sort of
data as cargo,
data that you can take places. Sometimes it's going to be vital that you get it there quickly. Sometimes
I feel like that does not have to be in a 1.0, and I think data as cargo is one of the, like, data running. That gameplay loop is literally just going to be cargo hauling, and the ideas that they had about data running no longer make sense either, right?
You want to be able to destroy the data rather than it fall into enemy hands. Hacking with a level of minigame. It's supposed to have some sort of pipes minigame or something, but you want to be able to hack things, and obviously there's going to be hacking that.
Dude, the first ship that's supposed to have hacking, well, I guess not the first one, but a ship that's supposed to come with hacking is in the process right now. What's the name of it? I forgot. The one that looks like a mosquito. That's in White Box. Yeah, the Legionnaire. You think that's coming with any form of hacking?
You can just use like a tool that plug in that will sort of do it for you. But I also think there is going to be a level of where actually manually hack certain things. There's going to be.
I always thought data running was just different cargo anyway. It was, but the main idea was comrades were very important. And right now, comrades are very important, but not in that way. So you were like moving data from a comrade, but data couldn't go from star system to star system. So you would data run information from a comrade from Stanton to the comrades in Pyro or something, was like the thought process there. But, and like price information wouldn't update in Pyro if you didn't run the data. You know, you wouldn't know the prices in Stanton when you're in Pyro if you didn't run the data between them or something. And it's just kind of like, I just don't know if that necessarily needs to be a thing. I think just having that system automated is probably
base
fine.
building, land claims. So you'll be able to go, I'm going to claim this piece of land in UE territory.
The biggest problem people should be worried about is the pay to win in this game, because you could buy it because of the ship sales. Yes. But at the same time, there's tons of opportunity to squash a bit of the pay to win with things like reputation, ship components, and progression systems. Like, yeah, you can have a 890 jump, but if you're not playing the game, you don't get to experience the more end game stuff. You don't just get to buy your way to end game. Hopefully,
if you're not in UE territory, if you're sort of like in the more Wild West, like Pyro or somewhere, and somewhere more dangerous, you don't need
we
to
don't know
land
about
time.
that.
You can just sort of build your base, but you run the risk of it not being protected in the same sort of way. We also want the base building to be relatively expansive and have the ability to rent habs and hangars and customize them as well at points of interest and landing locations.
For me, for 1.0, I don't want base building to just be cosmetic. It needs to be incredibly meaningful and incredibly sought after in certain systems, like the only way to extract certain resources. Therefore, big orgs need these, like, just like, this is why crafting is so paramount. Is like, crafting informs everything. And if you have a good crafting system that forces players to want to do it, or forces big orgs to want to do it, like, I just, that's why I've mentioned, like, I don't see a world where we're not crafting ships. Like, I know they said it at the end of CitizenCon, kind of. How I don't exactly know how it doesn't make sense in my brain yet, but I just don't see a way where this game doesn't look almost too much like Eve. And I hope they just strike a good balance between the things that push people away from Eve, because I don't think we want the game to be that niche, right? But at the same time, what does, like, a test squadron, what are their goals in game? What are the PvP orgs goals in game? You know, you want goals for orgs. What would it be? And I feel like they want to be like empires. You know what I mean? That's just the only way I can think of it, and I just can't fathom another way without giving the ability to make an org feel like an empire. To make an org almost feel like Microtech or Hurston Dynamics. To make them feel that way. You know what I mean? I just, but I can't put the two and two together to how that can ever happen with the framework of the game that they've created so far. Right? Yeah, like being the governor or like regional taxes. But then you run into, like, have you played New World? That ruined New World. You know what I mean? What New World is not the best game in the world, okay? By any means. But it was not that bad. Okay? It was not that bad. But one of the things that I think absolutely ruined New World was the end game content was gated by toxic organizations and companies, right? So the end game content would be fighting in wars and fighting over territories for a lot of people. But then you were like, who could participate in those was very much gated, and it was not a great experience. And I just, we can't have that in this game. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Just give us the tools. An org can operate without taxes. Let us make up our own rules. I mean, that would be very, very sandboxy, right? But if you let us have too much, then what sort of exploits are, you know? So it's like, this is going to be an incredible challenge to create a game in this space after already taking 12 years. That's why the title of this video is insane. How do you build a game in this world in 18 months? You can't. You can't. It is not fathomable. It's impossible.
And with sort of base building and part of that, I suppose it's not just part of that.
How about this? How do you build a complete 1.0 worthy crafting system in 18 months? You can't. Just one element, not even the economy tied to it.
Crafting and fabrication of things. We know that that's going to be part of base building, but we want to be able to craft lots of different stuff, and we're going to be able to craft all the way up to sort of ships.
And if you can, it will be a mess. What will be in 18 months? It's just board said maybe by the end of 2025 we might see a minimum viable product.
And obviously items and lots of different stuff. So there will be
So that's about 18 months.
Players being able to go to an entirely unpopulated system, go there, make a base, and actually be effectively self-sufficient if they can find the materials they need to produce ammo and fuel and all that sort of jazz. Player shops and trading, got ships like the Banner Merchantman that will make use of player shops, but the ability to do trades, the ability to have shops, maybe an auction house, stuff like that. Science.
See, like he just breezes over so much of the crafting and the player shops and things like that. But you when you sit down and you really think about it, the amount of time it would take to build a system that makes sense to drive players to want to do that is so far from what we have now that if they do it in a short period of time, there's a 0% chance it will be good.
It's an exploration. So this is a slightly more complex one that I think will expand over time, much more past sort of the initial release of Star Citizen. But I would expect to see things like surveying, so you can survey land and work out what's there, what's under there, materials and stuff. Is it a suitable place for a base? Data crunching, sort of, I'm going science data, I'm going to take that and make it into a sort of crafting for science data, I suppose. Farming, we know that farm is going to...
We know that farming is going to be in, is what he just said. We want it to, but we don't, not for 1.0 maybe, but the science is an interesting one.
To be a thing, and then at some sort of other level of sciencey based crafting. Now, exploration is kind of a load of different things splashed together, and
I think exploration has always just been treasure hunting.
Just having a wide gameplay area and things to find and sort of detect.
Yeah, we're in agreement.
A sort of expanded scanner system will allow for that level of exploration that I want at least in the short term. Again,
the only thing that exploration really excited me about, and theoretically they could do this, and I honestly think they're going to. I don't know for 1.0, but one of the things that they could definitely do is have random jump points in random locations. And those are not very stable, so they open and they close. That was one thing that always excited me about exploration, was that we can be in the Stanton system. What are all the systems that connect to Stanton? Magnus, Pyro, Terra, and that's it, right? And Nyx? I don't think it connects directly to Nyx. I can't remember. But it doesn't matter, because randomly they can turn one on and you can find it. And then what they also said is you can name it, which would be really cool. So that's something that they could do, and I think that would be like that end game exploration, that the reason to buy the Carrack, the reason to have some of these really big ones. I think that's something that isn't out of the realm of possibility whatsoever, knowing that we now have server meshing and they could just make a connection, right? Is it that big of a deal? I don't think so. So that's like one of the things that really drew me to it and I thought was super cool, was that you can have an impact on the game. You can spend your day looking for one of these jump points, maybe learning how to find them or whatever, right? So, and
I think it's something they will expand out quite a lot. Things like stealth for FPS gameplay, that needs to be relatively refined. A lore system that supports very well lawful, neutral, and unlawful gameplay, and jurisdictions in lots of areas. So they sort of have that to a degree, but needs to expand out to be much more unexploitable, because obviously, especially when you've got effectively permadeath in a game to a degree, and lots going on in Star Citizen, you don't want the ability to someone just go lol and somehow
yeah, Star Citizen will fix all of the exploits and still have permadeath. Yes.
Ruin your fun when you're being lawful in an area they shouldn't be able to do that. So then there needs to be systems in place there to prevent people's like pad ramming you, sort of coming into your
Very
and
simple,
ramming you and stuff
fun.
like that. So there's racing, loads of arena commander modes, so expanding that out so it's a much more refined experience. NPCs and characters as cargo, so literally VIP transportation, transporting people on ships that can seat people, more refined quantum travel experience.
But Board's thinking about it in I think, a reasonable way, in the sense of like just going through all the gameplay loops that should be there. I very much think about it in a little bit of a different way. I just think about it. You can add. You don't need personal transport. You don't need all the finer details as much in a 1.0 release. I don't think you need them as much as you think. But what you need is the framework and the base of economy, purpose, and progression. Those three things, and you can build out the game from there very, very simply and sensically, like with sense, you know? If you have these progression systems and you have the all the things that make sense in the world, then from there it's just about making it fun and interesting and replayable and enjoyable for players.
You know that they've got this sort of, as you're accelerating into quantum,
like personal transport is just cargo.
Start forming a corridor.
But why do I want to do
you
it?
have to sort of stay within that corridor,
you know?
Otherwise you sort of damage your ship potentially. But once you're actually fully accelerated up, you can go hands off and actually travel as normal. When you're quantum boosting, it's the sort of same. You're having to fight against the controls, and with that as well, you want a solid system for quantum snaring and dampening, and that to actually be fully explained. I think it's going to affect nav mode basically. There's also a ton of mission content, dynamic events, points of interest, ships and vehicles, and that sort of stuff that needs to go into the game beyond that. So mission content.
They need to fill out the planets while simultaneously allowing us to as well. It will be an interesting balance.
And bundling that in with dynamic events. That is going to make the grind of the game appealing and enjoyable, right? I want something to do, mission content. There's lots of stuff you can do yourself, like base building or trading or whatever, and hauling, but there's also going to be loads of missions that are sort of associated with that, and a whole range of missions beyond that really make like the exploration gameplay, the science gameplay. They got good missions, they got good dynamic events, and they keep on making them, and you keep on having interesting ones because they're sort of like going to have this modular generation system and all that sort of jazz. That you're going to be enthused and having fun. Missions are what is going to make a large portion of this game. Obviously, points of interest, that leads into exploration, but also place to have mission content and more interesting points of interest. You do need aliens for this as well. They need to do all the alien
I don't think you need aliens for 1.0.
Some of it, and have encounters with the Banu, with the Xi'an,
or
with
if you do, they don't ever have to leave the ships. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, just personally, I just don't think, because again, why not? I think what you need for 1.0 is, for me, I don't know, buddy. I don't know where you think you are, but you're on twitch.tv/SaltEMike. And when I speak, I'm usually going to share my opinion. And I even started the sentence out with, I don't think you need. Okay? So I don't know why the hell you're arguing with me on this one. I'm just sharing my opinion. But the idea here, yes. But the idea here is, I don't think you need to have, and it might not even be possible to build out I just think it might be really difficult to build out their systems, their planets, their lore, the way they move, the way they act. It might be really challenging. So I think it, like, from 1.0 and beyond, I think those could be, 2.0, 3.0 things where you are initially able to interact with them and maybe go down to their planets and have a limited system of interaction with them, but not super, super detailed. Again, I think 1.0, like how I've been explaining, I think they just need to prove that they have a really good base that could be fun and go from there, right? And that's just my opinion. And obviously, yes, you're entitled to yours. It was just like, I don't know why you're arguing that much, like, and saying for me. I understand that obviously some people will disagree, right? And that's totally fine. I'm not saying you're wrong. Neither of us are wrong, because it's just our opinion of what we would want to see 1.0 like. Board isn't wrong either, right? I'm just saying I don't I think I personally would need XYZ instead of
The
ABC.
Tavaran with, I suppose Tavaran are living in the UE, with the Kurthak and with the Vandal. You don't potentially need to have all of the alien races in an initial release, but especially like not the Kurthak, for example, but it would be good to, right? I mean, you definitely want to have the Vandal in, and why wouldn't you with Squadron 42? And
No
the
need
Vandal
for
being the
aliens
main
to leave
enemies there.
ships. I think the Banu kind of do. And what's funny is the one. Maybe you do, because the game is such an FPS game, right? As well, that we know that the Vandal, we will have an FPS experience against them, right? I think that's pretty obvious based on the trailers. What would interacting with the Xi'an and Banu be like, right? You kind of have to interact with them in FPS as well. Maybe it is necessary, but at the same time, I just don't feel I personally need that experience right away. I just need a good experience in Stanton. Like, in reality, just prove to me that you can make Stanton fun, and I know you can make the rest fun. That's it.
It'd be good to have the Xi'an, Tavaran, and Banu. I'm also expecting
That's where my brain is with this.
Load more gameplay around capital ships.
Like, I don't think we need to go as far as aliens if we can't get one star system right yet. You know what I mean?
Facilities for
That's where I'm
repairing and
struggling.
outfitting them, appropriate gameplay loops for them. And all of this together is far more than the sum of its parts. It does allow for big fleet battles, boarding, piracy, espionage, area control. You want to have that ability to have really great PvP with this, and to have this sort of very in-depth piracy system, but you also need to have players to be able to trade as part of that as well, because you don't want pirates just blowing people up all the time. You want them to be able to negotiate. You want orcs to be able to fight.
He's very, very quickly saying, like, player choice is important, right? Players should have the choice of whether or not to not experience PvP, right? But they should kind of know what they're signing up for when they're going to certain places, right? Players should be able to experience the game without PvP being a threat all the time.
Fight over areas, and a lot of this is going to sort of be emergent to a degree. They sort of have the systems in place and then expect certain gameplay to happen, and they're going to be obviously refining that and tweaking that and trying to push towards.
I'm just reading a Twitch chat message. I think this game will lack creativity, crafting, etc. They want to control too much of everything. To some extent, I agree with you, but as they've built out the game, slowly but surely, they are giving up that control because they're recognizing that they have to. Again, very early in the game's development, Chris Roberts said there would never be crafting in this game. And I said, how can you have these things without crafting, right? How can you have an MMO without crafting? You can't. And they have gradually come around to realizing that they have to let go of some control and allow players to enjoy themselves. And I'm confident that they will come to those conclusions. It just might take them much longer than your average development company that is not more focused on building a storefront instead of a game.
Towards some of this gameplay,
You know?
As they move forward with the game, but a lot of it doesn't need a specific system for. It just goes, well, all these systems allow for that, so that's what's going to happen. And beyond all of that, I'm expecting after 1.0's launch for loads more to happen. Deeper exploration and discovery, more systems, more points of interest, more ships. Thing is with all of this as well is that we're actually pretty close to having what I think is a 1.0 release now, because a lot of that stuff is already in-game to some degree. Not all of it, not base building and things like that, but that's either coming into the game real soon in 2024 or is already there. It needs refinement, needs a load of extras, some of it's like a placeholder, but it's not too far away. Like, I'm interested to know, do you think it's possible that we could be
Bro's troll. You're trolling. He's trolling. He's trolling. There's no way. There's no way.
looking at a 1.0 version of Star Citizen release by the end of 2025 or sort of mid-2026? Do you agree with me that that's a possibility? And if so...
Do we have to make a bet? Like, I feel like, like, not gun to your head kind of thing, but like, yeah. Do you actually believe that? You know what I mean? Like, that's one of those things, is like, put some money on it, put something like, or like, not really, but like, if you had to bet something that you actually cared about, do you actually believe the words you just said? That's something I would ask at board. Like, I don't believe that at all, and I don't believe that he could possibly believe that if you actually like put the pressure on.
So what else would you like to see in it? Do you think any of those features that I mentioned probably
How?
wouldn't make it? I do concede that there is supposed to be a load more stuff going in Star Citizen, over 100 star systems and stuff like that at some point. But
I think this conversation about 1.0, and this is why I hated the letter for the chairman so much, is I think it and it's already doing it. Like, Board is not a dumb guy, but I think it creates this idea that it's not that far away. And all I really think that letter for the chairman was very similar to the letter from the chairman the last time they got the PES thing working. Was like, we hit a milestone in tech, and now we want to share with you what our focus is. Right? And they hit a milestone with server meshing tech, and they wanted to share with us that their focus is on shipping something. Right? But that doesn't mean that it's going to be right around the corner. It is, we have hit this milestone, and it is now time to shift the direction of this company in this direction. And it was like a shareholders meeting almost. And like, hey guys, we did this, and now we're focusing on something else. And that, I don't think it was a marketing statement. Like, I don't think it was as bad as you guys are putting it out to be. I think it was very much an informing us of the direction that they're going in. The problem is that it does seem to have this effect on most of us where we think that these things are closer than they are. They mentioned 4.0 and then immediately mentioned 1.0 in the same sentence, basically. So what does that do in your brain is it makes you think that we go from 4.0 to 1.0. And we do, but what they're not saying is the 4.27 patches that will be in between, because that is the exact same thing they did with 3.0 to 4.0. And we are on 3.24. Okay? And I don't think anybody expected that there would be 24 major patches between, or 3.23. I don't think that anybody believed that there would be that many patches between 3.0 and 4.0, CIG included, right? And so many years later. So they're very conveniently leaving out the possibility of what would be in between there. And I don't know if that's purposely to generate hype or not. I don't believe that's the case. I honestly believe that they were super excited. They hit a huge major milestone. Somebody jumped from Stanton to Pyro, and they wanted to go, yep, this is that big last piece that we needed to start moving to make the game. To start moving to make the game. Okay? Not actually finish it anytime soon. That's what I believe. We'll see who's right, but you know, if you always take the conservative route like I'm taking here, you're going to be happy when it happens earlier, and you're going to be right when they fuck it up. And I don't want to be right. Okay? I don't want to be right here, but I just don't see how you deliver a 1.0, satisfy the people who have supported you for 12, 13, 14, 15 years without really taking your time and doing it right. Okay? That's you are, and here's the thing is CIG, and I truly do believe this, do have stopped caring as much about their old time backers because they got the money already, and they have to focus on new people. And my biggest concern would be, is the 1.0 good enough to draw new people in? But do they care if it will upset the people who funded the game? Right? You can't refund at that point. All that, like, it just doesn't matter, you know? So we'll have to see. But I don't know. It's just, I don't think the letter was framed very well, because I think it creates a headspace like what we're seeing here in this video.
Minimum viable product for the first release of Star Citizen, and then for them to add more, that's basically what I'm expecting. And I'm sort of interested how that compares to whatever you think. Yes. Oh, other things. Please don't forget to check out NordVPN. NordVPN, great VPN. We advertise it on the channel. I use it. I think it's super useful as a sort of like an extra tool in my security toolbox, but also very useful if I want to go, I'm in America or I'm in Japan, because there's some anime that's exclusively released there. Check those links out below because discounts and all that sort of jazz. We also have every month a ship giveaway. We're giving away a Hornet F7C
I'm more
Mark
of a
II
Surfshark guy
at the moment.
myself.
Just comment on any of my videos made during the month to be in for a chance of winning that. And if you'd like to further support the channel, there is a join button under my videos. There's Patreon. There's a load of links below. They're like affiliate links and stuff. You use those products, you get discount, I get money. Thank you so much for watching until the end of this video, and please tell me what you think in the comments below.
I think anime is cringe. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I think for most of the things, Board's pretty strong on what should be in 1.0. But then at the same time, when you list out for 18 minutes straight features and expect them to be in 18 months towards the end of 2025, you gotta think like twice there. You know what I mean? I think for the most part, like the features that need to be in the game are correct. I just think his timeline is insane. But yeah, we'll have to see. So I don't know, guys. I looked at the letter for the chairman and I go, I am very happy that you are shifting the direction of the company towards delivering a 1.0 release. Thumbs up. And that's where I stopped thinking about it because we still got 323. We most likely have 324, then maybe 325, then 4.0. And then we have that long process of 4.0 to build out to the 1.0 release. And that will be a long process and hopefully a very fun one. Hopefully it will not be as painful as the 3.0 cycles that we had to deal with. And that's it. I just hope that each patch things get more and more fun and more enjoyable. And I don't know. We'll see. I just do not think that we're jumping from 4.0 to 1.0 that quickly. It just doesn't make sense to me.